Hi, everybody. I'm very excited to be here. I'm very excited to be outside. Happy to be seeing a lot of new faces, a lot of familiar faces as well. Slightly nervous, but for those of you who don't know me, and you're probably not able to pick up my accent, I'm Jamaican. And now I live in Switzerland. There's a lot of story in between, and I have way more pictures than Jordi. So that's also a bit fun. I have my trusty mobile phone to just keep me on track as well. So when I said that, I want to have this opportunity to speak, and I was thinking about topics, I remembered once my brother, whom I followed into telecoms, said that I'm unstable, not in a mental capacity way, but that I moved around a lot, and so I was unstable, and he couldn't depend on me, and so on. So this is where this adage comes from: a rolling stone gathers no moss. So the scientific meaning behind that is the person who does not settle in one place will not accumulate wealth or status or responsibilities or commitments. Or, in the words of the character that Jack Nicholson played in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, it's hard for something to grow on something that's moving. So that's a simplistic version. So, the intro. I got into telecoms not through any great passion, not because I studied it in university, not because I wanted to change the world. Simply put, I needed a job. Plain and simple. But to understand that whole journey, we have to go back, quite a far way back. Not Flashback Fridays back, but embarrassing pictures back. My family, in all our glory. So the first picture, my brother, my sister, I think this is a cousin of mine, and then there's me in my red socks, red and white socks, and my gray shoes, and my school uniform, fashion forward. And the other photos, a little bit darker, but that's us three siblings with our mom. I think that was probably in 1986 or something like this. We grew up in a single-parent home. Father was absent. We felt that a lot. My mom struggled. She wasn't very well educated and had to leave us on our own a lot to work. And there was a lot of frustration and bitterness around that. But we survived. High school time. So when I was 11, I went to boarding school, and the idea around boarding school in Jamaica is a little bit different than what some people would know, because it's not where you're sent away because you're being bad, but really this one was to teach us independence and have us interact with people from different cultures, from different backgrounds, different races, different economical circumstances as well. And there I spent 5 years doing just enough to not get noticed so much, either bad or good. When I was in the 9th grade, we would prepare now for external examinations. We would have 2 years, and afterwards we would, depending on the subjects that we took, we would then go to university. So you were following the science track or the business track.
Sure.
Arts wasn't a thing. I loved literature. I loved the English language. But I graduated high school with Spanish, hola, English literature, English language, math, typewriting, and religious education. To do what? No idea. But graduated. And, my high school graduation. 1993, 16 years old. This picture is a culmination of homesickness, friendships forged in fire, and unrequited love. Back in those days, we would listen to the radio in the mornings when we were getting ready to go to school, and Mariah Carey would belt out some songs, and you would think of the guy that you had a crush on, and you'd be like, oh my God, is today going to be the day that he's going to notice me? Never happened. Okay, fine. No worries, no problem. We stick it out. So, graduated. And as I crossed the stage at my graduation, there were two things that I knew without a doubt. Number one, I had no clue what I wanted to be when I grew up. And number two, I would never, never, never set foot in another classroom. So, my first job was with a lady from church. Mrs. Hay, she's the lady in the white blouse and the blue skirt in the first picture. I was the department's clerk typist, so that's me collecting a certificate or something. And at the bottom is all of our secretaries. We were in the school library system, and this is where it was a public school library system. We would collect books and distribute to schools all across the island. Mrs. Hay was one of my first advocates. She was very stern. She demanded a lot. And I was working with others who were around my age, and she said, they can never call you by your first name. They have to call you Miss Stewart. You have to hold yourself up to a higher standard. And so when everybody was out hanging out and having fun, I had to step back, because I was also the one who would give them the memo when they had misbehaved, so to speak. So, distance. And this is us at one of our Christmas luncheons. So I stayed in that job for 5 years. I was pushed to try to become a librarian. Didn't want to do that. Didn't want to be a secretary either. So after 5 years, I left. And I went to help my aunt set up her business. That's all I will say about that. In the ensuing years, I worked at the national paper. I worked at a paging company, which I imagine was my first dalliance with telecoms. I worked in a hardware store. I worked in a furniture store. Different things, no career. I'm working. So I said. Then, January 2001, found myself without a job. And the embarrassment of Cable and Wireless denying me a prepaid phone service. This phone. Yeah? Prepaid phone service meant that you paid $2,000 to Cable and Wireless for the month. You paid it up front. And you would have access to the service for that month. I guess I had no credit history. Cable and Wireless said, absolutely not. Then February, we heard about Muzzle Jamaica launching in Jamaica. They were coming to challenge Cable and Wireless, who were the incumbents for like 20 years, and we're going to revolutionize telecoms in the Caribbean. My brother got an interview, and he didn't have a phone at home, but because we were resourceful, he called me collect. I conferenced the call with the interviewer, and so he had his interview. And I call this now timing being everything, because at the end of his interview, I interjected and I said, oh, by the way, do you have any other vacancies? And Stephen Price, he said, yeah, you know, we actually could hire some more temporary call center agents. I was like, yes, okay, cool. Went to the interview, crushed it. And then hired as a call center agent and embarked on 6 weeks of training. Binders as thick as this. We're learning about GSM and SIM cards and what it could do and the SMSC and the this and that. And all of a sudden, eat that, Cable and Wireless, I had access to phones like this. The trusty Nokia 3310 and the Nokia 3210 and Panasonic GD92 and all of these phones were actually, what this meant was that we had to know the menus of all of these phones, every single one of them. And so we had them and we brought them home and we tested them and we worked with them. And so customer would call in and there is somebody who probably can't even read, but they have a phone because Digicel made it affordable and accessible to everyone now. Eat that, Cable and Wireless. And so we would have to say, okay, so you see the button on the right? Press that one time. Okay, and then the button in the middle, oh yeah, the arrow button, yes, press that one time. Okay, and then the button to the left, you press that one time. Oh, the okay button, yes. And now you turn your phone off and you turn it back on and everything should be working fine. Everything worked fine. It was a very exciting time. I felt very connected to Digicel. I was a part of something that was revolutionary. I found something that I was good at, so it satisfied my personal as well as my professional goals. And then call center, you burn out, right? I was 3 years in that. I was done. It was over. I begged to join the international business department. That was carrier services and roaming. There are some embarrassing photos that are coming, more from me. But Mr. Pereira is in one of these pictures. Stephanie is also in one of these pictures. Couple of people you might recognize as well there. But anyway, Ian Marwood, my second advocate, he helped me to launch into roaming. I was bored, had not much to do, so started there handling GPRS, as it was at the time. And there is a story about a certain boss that I met before he was my boss. And then when he showed up as my boss, I died a little bit inside from embarrassment and was hoping that the ground would open up and swallow me. But that's a story that's best told over beers, not for this audience. So you can ask me or you can ask Mr. Pereira if he's willing to share at a point. Anyway, we worked together for a very tense 2 years probably, butted heads a lot, we fought a lot. And then I decided to leave and go to the South Pacific, to PNG, to set up Digicel Pacific operations. Very tough living in PNG, but it was a professional step for me. Hire my own team, train them, develop them, hire vendors, all of this stuff, and it was really an exciting time. Another challenge that I had in this position was not being recognized for the contribution that I was making. Digicel at the time, Irish company, lots of Irish people everywhere, and we were listed on the in HR as Other Caribbean. What that meant is that we were not expats. We were paid differently. It came out later that I had the same salary as the wife of one of the expats who was at home. So you can imagine what that does to one's confidence. It was very unfair, but at the same time, I kept at it. The staff were very respectful. I loved them, they loved me, and it was all in all a wonderful experience. Somewhere in a bar in Tonga, my name is on a plaque for buying 100 Steinlager beers. So that's what I took from that. Anyway, 2 years in the Pacific, then to a few months in Panama, and my first barge, so embarrassing photo, I feel no embarrassment whatsoever. My first barge in India in 2007, you will see Jason Yip and Derek Tan there. Some other crew from Fiji, and my Digicel ID. Then I moved to Comphone after Digicel. I did that for a year in sales, not my forte at the time. That's me and David Roth at Comphone Christmas party, I think. David had more hair then. I mean, didn't we all? So I did the sales thing at Comphone for a year. Then I left to iMobix, and now I'm developing a lot of these skills. I'm moving to the US as well. And when I moved to the US, I started my first degree. So remember this never say never stuff. Started my first degree, did that within a year and change. And then I was ready to move on. There was nothing, I didn't have the right visa to stay in the US. So I moved to Bix, to Belgium, to a culture shock, to crappy weather, to language and administration difficulties that I've never experienced ever before in my life and hope never to again. My Bix colleagues were different. I arrived on Monday. There was an event the Thursday. I stayed back and I talked to everyone because I'm like, yes, I'm the new girl. I'm going to get in with everybody. And I'm going to drink, and hang out and be the last to leave the party. The next day, people passed me as though we've never met. And that was my general 7 years experience in Belgium. They said that I have to be formally presented to them by somebody that they already know and trust in order to get in. And me being me and having found my voice and having had all these experiences, I go, that's stupid. And I would challenge them. I said, I'm not trying to marry you. I'm just trying to be friendly. I'm just trying to have some colleagues. So very, very tough. But also at BICS, we worked very hard on setting up the open connectivity roaming hub. I had a lot of exchanges with the MTN guys, with a team. We met for the first time today, but I've been talking to a team since 2012. A lot of the African operators at that point. So it was pretty fun. That's some of the girls at the top right, if I'm looking at it correctly, during one Movember. Some colleagues in Singapore, and then the one on the bottom right, your right, my right, is in Marrakesh, I believe, 2017, and it's with those guys that I met at my first barge. This was now was in Marrakesh. Jason, Cedric, my really good friend, Malcolm, Shigeo Yoshida, and Derek Tan as well. So I've been around the block a few times. I've gathered a lot of experience. I've developed a resilience that I never knew I had. And I keep striving, I think, for more. I left roaming. You might notice, for anybody who knows me, I left out a little sliver of the experience for reasons that we won't get into. But now I've landed. I've landed at GMS in the SMS sphere. New for me, something again which I enjoy about telecoms. Just always moving, always changing. I've landed with among a great group of professionals, people from all over the world, mostly Ukraine. And it's a fun time so far. I have to say that I'm missing roaming though, so don't be alarmed if you see me coming back. I have to say that I have a lot of these pictures on the top left. This is pre-drinking, so I was hard-pressed. I was hard-pressed to find photos that were kosher for this event, but I hope that you will recognize that I'm more the other three photos than only the one in the top left-hand corner. So anyway, as the adage says, a rolling stone gathers no moss. People might think I'm unstable because I've lived in Fiji, Papua New Guinea, in Samoa, in Tonga. I've lived in the US, I've lived in Belgium, and I'm now living in Geneva, Switzerland. A rolling stone gathers no moss, but it gains a certain polish. And I want to think that I am this polished person that you see standing in front of you today. Not the idea. Thank you. But not the idea that Ivan reminded me of yesterday, not the idea that Kim and June have of me in 2006. I have what, maybe 20 more years before I retire, or maybe 3 days since I'm wealth adjacent in Switzerland. But I hope to continue in this industry for a whole while yet. Thank you so much for your attention, everybody.